So today we have three of us who are going to talk about blogs, and we sort of coordinated ourselves that we'll go one at a time, take 10 to 15 minutes or whatever, excuse me, and then there's plenty of time then for questions. I suppose if you have a question right while we're talking, that's okay too, if it's burning in you and you want to know. I'm assuming, without talking to Eileen and Gordon, that we three probably approach our blogs very similarly, but differently as well. And we have different subject matter. And so Eileen was going to go first. And so our title is The Who, What, Where, When, Why, and How of Blogs. And so we're going to try to touch on those, maybe not exactly in that order, but we're going to touch on those. And Eileen, you can begin.
Okay, why do I write a blog? Well, it was all Tom's idea, that it's a good way to promote yourself and to gain an audience, probably for your writing and your books. So when I started, I hadn't a clue. I was kind of like, what will I write about? How am I going to do this? So I started off, I think, with probably doing a few interviews of local people that were interesting and were involved in the arts and that kind of thing. And I did a bit about my books as well and some promotion. And as time went on, I kind of divided it up over the month, that one week, because I write for children, I do something for children and teenagers. And then the second week, something towards parents and guardians. Third week to fellow writers, because I wanted to, have different discussions with different writers. And then because I had interest in local things, I found over the time that I would do something maybe locally in my area or nationwide in Ireland, or maybe usually to do with writing or something like that. So that's what I've been doing. And then lately I've been working in themes. So my latest theme is the importance of reading. So that's, and I feel I'm trying to help people as well and guide them to. I often quote from different sites that I Google. I kind of, when I have an idea in my head, I like to Google things and read up on them and try and get my own train of thoughts on those things and bring those different points of view in and quotes. And sometimes I throw in videos and I put in pictures as well. I usually get my photos, free photos on Pexels. And then I found when I was trying to load those up, they'd be fine on my blog, but then they weren't showing up on Goodreads on my blog. So I investigated that, and somebody suggested I use Imgur, I-M-G-U-R. So what I do is I load up the photos to Imgur, and then I use the URL from Imgur to put up on the WordPress that I'm using. So it's a WordPress site that I'm using. And when I have written my blog, I share it to my authors page on Facebook, my own private profile on Facebook, Instagram, Goodreads, LinkedIn, and MeWe. So I try and spread it out in different places. Has anybody any questions? I usually do it on a Monday once a week.
I had that same problem with photos on Goodreads, but I just haven't tried to put the photos on there yet. But Imgur, huh?
Imgur, yeah.
Okay.
So at the moment, I was talking to Tom about this recently, that maybe I should go down the road of kind of helping people about writing, about books for children and guiding reading for children, because I used to be a primary school teacher teaching children with special needs as well. So I'm just trying to think about that. Another thing I'm trying to think about is doing podcasts of my blogs as well, which I must look into. I was a bit afraid of that. I really must go into it now and see if I can do that as well. So if you have any questions.
I do. Craig, just wondering about your MeWe interaction. How have you been finding MeWe to be for you?
I don't get much interaction, actually. I find that I'm not sure if I'll stay on MeWe, actually. Most of the interaction I get is, I find there's a lot of very right-wing people on there, which is, I'm kind of in the middle of the road. And I'm just interested in talking about books and that, really. So
Right.
I'm a bit disappointed with it, really. I don't get much interaction on it.
Yeah, I'm finding the same thing to be true.
Yes. So,
I was on there briefly, but I didn't stay.
yeah.
I don't know. It didn't click with me somehow.
I like the interaction of Facebook myself. I always have done. I prefer Facebook because it's so interactive. Instagram I get good results on Instagram as well, but I need to learn more of the techniques and tools to use it better. And I think LinkedIn is very good, and Goodreads as well. I get good reaction on those as well.
Eileen, this is Phil. When
Yes.
you launched your blog, did you have people already lined up that you were sending your blog to, or making your blog available to, or did you have to attract people into you somehow to find your blog?
I sent out, because I was putting it on my Facebook, my friends and family could see it. So that was a start, and people that know me. And I had to try and gain interaction from other people blogging as well. So I did the trouble is I liked a lot and followed a lot of people on WordPress, but the trouble is I don't have time to read them now as well. But it's good to network with other bloggers as well.
Okay.
And also, because my blog is on my website, there's a form there that people can sign up to receive news and things like that. So that's me, unless anybody's got any more questions.
Eileen, I guess I would ask a couple of questions and encourage Nancy and Gordon to make a quick note, because I'd really like to get, once they have an opportunity to speak, their perspectives as well. There are three things I'd like to know. Number one, how long have you been blogging? Number two, how many followers do you currently have? And number three, has the number of followers you have met your expectations when you began blogging?
Now, again, I'm not great on the numbers. I'm not great into that kind of thing now. I would say I probably have about, I don't know, 30, 40 followers. I might have more. I've been blogging for about 2 years, I think. So I've been building up very slowly. It takes time, but I feel it's beginning to get noticed now.
Mm-hmm.
But I really haven't gone into that side of assessing how many, how well it's successful it is.
Okay, thank you.
So you want to go on, Gordon? Oh, you're muted.
Every time, right? I'll try to be efficient with the 15 minutes, and I'll start with Mari's question because it's a good question. I started blogging in 2005 on a site that doesn't exist anymore called Zynga, and they were one of the earlier sites. Quantifying my followers is not just how many people read my blog, it's how many people interact with the material across all my platforms. And so that answer would be probably 7,000 or 8,000 people right now. And yes, there's frustrating days where it meets my purposes. I mean, there's where it does not meet my purposes and things die in the void. But that's the good thing about repurposing later on. But yeah, I think so. Mine is to, I definitely want people to read what I'm writing. I'm trying to build an audience and a brand, and then convert them over to sales. So I want to talk about my what is what I do with a blog. Because if you have a WordPress site and you just started it today and you crafted your blog and you posted it, no one will read it. No one will know it exists. No one will know it's there. And I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings. I've done all of that, but like, you'll start it. It'll be the best thing. It'll be God given, and you're going to post it, and you're going to get 5 to 7 readers because your family and friends are going to check it out. So what I want to give to you is how to get people to read your content. So I'm going to start with the idea of 250 to 450 word blogs. To begin with. It's like starting a podcast. You got to start at 10 minutes because no one's going to listen to an hour. And so learning to write succinctly in about 250, 450 words. There are times, where you need to lengthen that. But if you've got something big, I encourage you to write a series. You're going to talk about this topic in 3 or 4 or 5 different blogs. And then as you progress in that, be sure to always include a link to the prior editions. If you're on number 3, make sure 1 and 2 are linked in there. I encourage you to write in an old Southern Baptist preacher style with 3 points or multiple points. They don't all have to begin with the set letter P. They don't have to be alliterative, like a good Southern Baptist sermon. I say that as a Southern Baptist sermon kid. My dad always had those 3 points that began with the same letter. Here's why I say all that. And again, I'm happy to expound on this in coming weeks because I'm going to give you a lot of data. The goal can't just be to get them to that one place where your site exists. It's too minimal and the internet is too big. If you're trying to get them to go to jgordonduncan.com/blog, it's too narrow. That can't be the only place that content exists, because if they don't find it, then you're not there. One of the reasons I encourage point-by-point blogs is this. So I'm going to walk through a pattern of what I do when I write with a blog, okay? I write the blog. I send it to my email list. I post it on my website. I post that link onto Facebook. Post that link onto LinkedIn. And so right now, it's already hitting 4 different audiences. I then record a podcast around that topic. So now it's a brand new audience. And then over the course of the following week, I take those 3 points and they become individual social media posts. So then that's 3 more posts on Facebook. I adjust it a little bit for Instagram, add better pictures. I can do that then for LinkedIn. I can share those blogs into groups that I'm a part of that allow it. But then you can wind up getting 17, 18 uses out of a single 250 to 450 word blog. Because again, if it's one document on one website, no one's going to read it. But if you break it up into those pieces, all of a sudden, a lot of people are interacting with your content. I worked with one client to do this formula, and they raised their awareness by 465% over the course of 6 weeks. Now, listen, if you've only got 5 readers, it's very easy to get 465%. That's not necessarily where they were at. But the idea is, don't kill yourself thinking every 3 to 5 days or even once a week you've got to write a tome. The idea is write one piece that has multiple pieces in it that have a lot of value. Share that value, raise your awareness across all of those platforms, and it'll come back. Now, what I'm speaking of is going to require you to be on multiple platforms. It is. If your goal is just to have a website with a blog on it, then you're back to the singular point on the internet for people to find you. And you're writing what you're writing to be found, unless it's just an act of expression, which is fine, which is wonderful. But most of us want to be found in what we're writing. So give people that opportunity to be found. If you do have a WordPress, you can grab that RSS feed and put it on your Amazon Author Central page, and then they can find it there. You can use it on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. You can use it on, there's so many different places to put those individual pieces of content. It takes discipline and training way beyond the blog writing itself. But I hate to say it, we can't assume anyone's going to read 750 to 1,000 page word blogs right now, unless that's your audience that are given to it, unless you're writing for an academic or theological journal. So the idea is, yes, write that great content, Then ask yourself strategically, how can I put pieces of it all over the internet so people can find me? You won't build an audience or have massive sales from one blog. It'll never happen unless it just takes off viral. And it happens for the one in the bazillion that go viral. Going viral is incredibly hard, and it's hard to predict. So then, are the individual portions within your blog worthwhile to be read? So if you've got 3 points, is that second point worth reading? Does it stand alone as a paragraph and content? Then make that content available as a piece of content on Facebook or LinkedIn or various other platforms. It's an adjustment on the way you might write, and you may not like it at first, but if you're writing to expose what you have to say to a broader audience, then you've got to be strategic in the way you do it. Don't sacrifice or compromise your integrity or your convictions, but write in such a way that you can present it to an audience and they can find you. So that's a lot of data. I've got more to say, but anybody have follow-up questions about that?
Yeah, Gordon, I didn't hear you mention that in order to be a blogger, you need to have your own author website. What are your thoughts on that? Because I'm hearing, I think you just pump it out there to different as RSS feeds to different sites. But what about having a website?
I do think there's great value in having your own, philunderwood.com or philunderwoodauthor.com. I do.
Yeah.
Because you do want to have a central hub to keep all of that stuff. But it can't be the end all for people to find you. You're going to have to be spread all over the place.
Yeah, I heard that.
There is going to be a cost. It's going to cost you $12 a year for a URL for GoDaddy, which is not bad. You might pay $16 a month or something like that through Squarespace, or there's different forms out there. It's worthwhile to have someone outside of yourself create that site, unless that's what you're gifted at. You've got to have good photos. You got to have all your stuff gathered in, all your links, all your podcasts, all your writing. Because if you're going to send them somewhere, don't send them somewhere unless it looks good. But if you've got that together, it's a great place to have a central spot. And so all the blogs are right there if they want to continue reading, but it also gives you a place to link off to your other pages. So I do think there's a great value in having your own central website. It just can't be the only destination you want people to find you.
Okay. It's amazing. I'm not, the Bible and says a lot, do not be dismayed, but ever since I started or got the notion that I wanted to become a Christian writer, it seems like I've been guided through this process every step of the way. And just when I need to have something, bam, it's there. Somebody says something, or I stumble into something. I find things that I need to help me at that particular time. And I know I'm not supposed to be dismayed because, the power of God. And if I'm in this because I'm responding to a calling, I should expect to be guided along the way. But it's just amazing. Like right now, I'm just about ready to turn the corner on releasing a couple of books that I've been working on for a couple of years now. And I've written blog posts, prepared blog posts to be sent out. I'm going through this editing process of the first book, and then I'll be starting to do the same thing for the second one that's already written. And right now, I needed to learn about blogging, and bam, here it is. You guys are doing a presentation on it. I don't know what to say. God is so wonderful.
Good. It's encouraging. Phil. Other questions about that information blast?
Gordon?
Kim, yes.
Hey, can you talk a little bit more, because that's a hook for me anyway, writing for other editors, but and been being trained in sermon writing too. But the succinctness of the writing and the 3 points, I think, is great. Just give me an example of a subject, and then just like that's off or the one that you've done, and then kind of your 3 points, because I do think if you word count down, it does make you a better writer to do this kind of exercise. Too.
Yeah,
so can you go ahead and give me an example?
Sure. I mean, I had a professor in college, Dr. Dilworth, and every class began with like a 14-word sentence on the board. And our job, we knew, was to come in and rewrite that sentence as few as word possible with the same meaning. And he would say, who's got 8 words? Who's got 7 words? And it's a tremendous exercise. So we all know that brevity is a praiseworthy attribute. So for you, Kim, imagine you want to offer 3 tips on how to proofread. Because we know what proofreading is, but really don't know what we think Grammarly is proofreading, and we're very thankful for Grammarly. And I would make that one of my points. I would never trust yourself would be another point. Like you can't be the sole eyes on the document. And the third one I would say is, that allow your feelings to get hurt, or something along those lines. Like, don't take it personal. There's a great blog right there, or I won't call it great because there's an idea of a blog. Well, then you've written that, and that doesn't take a whole lot to expound on it, right? I mean, it really doesn't. You've got an outside source like Grammarly. Don't be your only eyes. Don't let your feelings get hurt. Well, then once you've written that, those 3 points in between, and again, 3 isn't holy, guys, outside of the Trinity, but you know what I'm talking about. But that's a great post for you later on. Like, hey, here's a proofreading tip, and then you do one of those, and here's another one, and here's another one. And then you could tweak that anytime. You could use point 1 multiple different ways to actually say it. I write my introductions and my conclusions to be reused. Because my intro would be the overwhelming need for proofreading. Or it might be a testimony when I published something that needed extra proofing and I didn't do it. But the idea is I want to communicate in a way. And you know what? If any of you have been trained to preach, a preacher would do the same way. I mean, he would want, or he or she would want, they want that third point to have an impact. It could be a standalone point that has an impact. Well, if you're writing, all writing in blogs in this nature to a certain extent is promotion and marketing. So how are you going to attract an eyeball to it? And then Kim, you could do, beginners, copywriting for beginners, or any of us. And so for me, I'm writing a lot of marketing and business materials right now along those lines. And so, I just keep a notepad full of ideas and scribble them, or my wife's great. I'll just text random thing to her and she'll be like, am I supposed to save this for something? And I'll say, yes. And then here's the big picture. Let's say you wrote 48 blogs last year. You didn't do one every week, but you did 48. You just wrote your next book. I mean, in the big picture, if you want to keep a mind on it, a big picture, you could use that and then edit it and then create a book out of it. If you've got that kind of thematic idea going on your writing. So in the big picture, it could turn into something that you could then edit and sell. So there's no need to not use that material that you spent the time on. So anyone else before I hand things off? All right, great. Baton passed.
Okay. Some of mine experience is very similar to Eileen and Gordon. And I would say I first started trying to write blogs probably 12 to 15 years ago. It was before I had written my first book and before I'd ever published. And I can't tell you it was a free site. It was a free building something another to make a blog. And I was curious. And so I just delved into it. And my main purpose at that time was to learn something about using the computer that way, but also for self-expression. And that is one of the reasons that I think I write is self-expression, practice in writing, because like Gordon said, you constantly are trying to wheedle it down, be more succinct. I think most of my blogs, when they get posted out on LinkedIn or wherever, they usually say 1 minute read. Most of them are somewhere around 500 to 600 words. Every once in a while, I go a little bigger, maybe even a little smaller. But generally, I haven't seen anything say over 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes. And so I'm like, okay, good. Because, first of all, a lot of people aren't going to spend more than 1 minute. And fortunately, this was a great encouragement to me. Some reader contacted me recently and said, I appreciate how succinct you are. And I thought, whoa, I must have been succinct in that blog, you know. That was something that came back to me that made me take note. Okay, keep that in your head, you know, be succinct. And, you know, it takes a little bit of work because at least I know I can get wordy. And so I wheedle it down and wheedle it down. The other reason is to keep myself in front of an audience. So like Eileen, I think on my website, my readers list, it says, I believe it's 40 followers. However, that doesn't count who I know is reading on Facebook, and they don't necessarily comment there. In fact, GoDaddy took away the comment box. They'll comment to me through my private email, or they might comment on Facebook. And then there's those who might comment on LinkedIn. And then recently I've become more acquainted with media. I think I learned that through Landon, and you can read a lot of neat stuff there, and you can also put your writings there. So I'm just beginning to do that. So you may have readers in many places that you don't even know. They're not telling you, but they're out there. Whatever social media you use, you may see at least a like, and you think, oh, well, they might have read something if they're liking it, you know. Someone made a small comment on my blog the other day, which immediately I knew she hadn't read it because of the question she asked. But then just a bit later, she said, oh, I read this, blah, 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 blah. So sometimes you can tell if it's being read or not. But the point is, besides the self-expression for me and the writing practice, which is for me a weekly thing, I put mine out every Monday. And it's, you know, I don't think I would do personally more than one a week, because I find it a lot of work to get one out a week. And so it is writing practice on top of the books we're writing. You can utilize sometimes what you're writing in your book for your blog. And as far as Gordon mentioned podcasts, I've been working on having a podcast for a little while now. Now, sometimes my podcasts are the subject matter that's in my weekly blog that week. Sometimes it's a little bit different. And I struggle with which way to go on that, because I don't necessarily want to be redundant. However, there are people who will listen when they won't read. And there are people who will read that won't listen. You know, they have preferences. There are people who love to listen to audiobooks that don't want to read one, or maybe they don't have the time to sit and read, but as they're traveling and going from place to place, they'll listen. So I feel like it's the same thing with blog writing. You could actually use your same content in two places, or at least very similar content, maybe gather two different audiences for those who prefer one over the other. So let's see. I think the hardest part for me was coming up with like an idea, like what am I going to write about? It's evolved over time to where I've settled, at least at the moment. And I noticed back several books ago, when I was still working, that every day I would observe these particular set of circumstances or a moment that really spoke to me. And so over time, that started in 2016 probably, I started noticing more and more just everyday moments. So everything I do focuses around the moments, significant moments, and how I apply it back to scripture or back to God. The whole purpose is to show how God is in these moments in our life. And I think that works for me in my thinking, because those of you who are preachers, and I had preacher dad or preacher grandpa and preacher everywhere, I really liked topical sermons. I always liked application to something that was in our life every day. And so I think I gravitated towards that in my own writing and then in my blog writing, because it's something that I've experienced or observed and can share, and either find scripture that goes with it or just apply it to God in our presence. That's my main thrust. So on my website, which I did build myself, and no, it's not the greatest, but it's mine for now, is stating that significant moments, God present in our lives. My podcast is called In This Moment. And I write a lot about, you know, it's actually, once I settled on that, it's not so hard to come up with a moment, because they happen constantly, you know, and they're not always positive. Sometimes they're very negative experiences, and how did I handle that, or how did somebody handle that? How did God intervene in that? Sometimes it's very positive. Sometimes it's just an observation. Some years ago, I was walking across the field with my dog, and this leaf caught my attention. Well, I ended up writing a whole blog on this leaf and the life of a leaf and the life cycle and how we come and how we go, and just whatever would catch my attention that works for me. And I think that's very different for every person, what kind of topic you might zero in on. For me, at least for now, it's that, and it's basically acknowledging and noticing the presence of God in the moments that occur in our life. So that's how I am working for now. And I struggled with that for a long time. Should it be that? Should they be equal? Should I have similar names? Should the podcast and the blog and the books all be separate? But there's kind of this theme that developed for me widely that I can use in different ways. So I do write my blog on my website under the blog setting, blog page, and then I send it out to Facebook, and then I send it out to LinkedIn, and then I'm trying to I've narrowed my social media down, so I'm deciding where I'll go farther. I put it on Goodreads. It automatically goes to my Author Central page on Amazon, and I'm trying to put a few of them in Medium. And Landon, I know you're here. I'm not sure that I'm doing that exactly right, but anyway, it'll go those places. And like I said, so different people, different places may be seeing them. And as far as the website, I feel like the website is very valuable, because even when I send my blog to Facebook or LinkedIn, I'm sending it from my website. And when they click on that, they're being routed to my website, and it'll flip right to my blog page. So they're not having to scroll through and look everywhere to find it. But they do see just for a second, because I've tried it. They just see for a second the beginning of the home page and a few things. And they, and some reader might be curious enough to say, hey, let me go back and see what else is at this website. There's a book page where all the books are available for sale. I'm in the process very soon of building my own store there as well, keeping both. And they might read other blogs that are there. They might want to find out some information about other books or whatever all the tabs are, about contact. I do get contacts through there. So I find that the website is kind of my central spot, and I just send it out from there, which then sends people back into it. So you never know. I do have a section in mind that says SEO, and it lets me know a little bit what's coming from Facebook, what's coming from where, how many people have actually just visited your site without those other things. I can't say I have huge numbers, but like Eileen, I'd say it takes a long time to start getting traction. It's like once you finally decide and settle, at least for me, it seems like then, okay, I have a clear idea of who I am, what I feel called to do, and what I can do and want to do. And then slowly traction has been building, very slowly, but it's there. And it's taken a long time. That first blog I was trying to write, I can't remember a thing I wrote or where it was or what happened to all those. I might have saved some, but I'm trying to save them now for the very reason Gordon said, to eventually compile them into a book. And I know on my website, I have mine on my homepage and also in a blog tab, because just like everything else the others have said, you're probably going to get a minute of somebody's time. You're probably only going to have a short time to make those 3 points. I'm not so good at those 3 points. I got to work on that some more. But I do have points, but there's not a lot of time people are going to spend. So like I talked to Dara about this, and she suggested for my purposes to keep my blogs on my homepage as well as in the blog tab. So as they're on the home page, they just scroll a little ways and they see the blogs, and there's more. However, that can take up a lot of space. I might have to weed it out now and then and just have a few. But at least if you have more than one, they can read back, and you might build some readers because they start to see a theme of what you write about. And if that connects with them, then they'll stay, and maybe they'll connect it to somebody else that they think would like it. So trying to think if I covered. My who is to get it out to my own subscribers, and then those on social media who might, look and eventually they might subscribe, but they may never. You don't know. My what is, what I said, my moments idea. Where I've told you that the places I send it, I may branch out a little bit more. Haven't quite decided when. Once a month, once a week for me. And I try to have blogs written ahead, because if you do it once a week and then you're right there on Monday and you're trying to get it out, and I've been in that shoes a number of times, I'm like, I didn't get it finished. It's not completed. It's already 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, if you've ever noticed mine, you might see some come out late on Monday. I make sure they're on Monday no matter what. But if I'm really prepared and have 2 or 3 written ahead, then I just send it out Monday morning and, feel a bit more on top of it then. But as we're working, whatever you might be doing, and as we're writing our books, we've got to find time to do that blog as well. So the why for me is what I said, the self-expression, the writing practice, and to get in front of more readers, to build more readership. That's probably the toughest thing for me to figure out how to do, is just to gain more readers. And it's a slow process. And I know some here have said before, pick a certain person that you keep in mind who you know as a reader and write to them. And I have a couple people like that. And so I try to think about that person or those people who do connect with what I write, and maybe they'll pass it on further. So that's what I do. I try to do all those things and try to be ahead a week or 2 at least. I don't always accomplish that, but that's kind of my take on it. And it's been a long haul, but I actually really enjoy it. It's a challenge, and I like that kind of challenge. So any questions for me or any of the rest of us?
Yeah, Nancy, it's Phil again. I'm almost to the point where I'm ready to start releasing or starting a blog. What are the first couple of things that I should do, practically speaking?
You're going to put it on your website or no?
Eventually, I don't have a website set up yet, but
Okay.
I'm more concerned about getting known, getting some followers. And I thought that, and I listened to what Tom says, so it seems like blogging is a good way to start to pull people in, to attract them.
Well, Gordon, you can probably answer that better than I can even. So, oh, you're muted, Gordon.
Tell you what, you would think I'd be better at that. I'm sure you could answer it as well, Nancy. Phil, real quick, where are you present on the internet?
I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I have a site called bubblish.com.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. I haven't been really active on social media. I'm sort of shy, and I'm busy doing other things, trying to learn how to write. And so
then
I'm really at the beginning.
Then I would say at the beginning, just keep it immensely simple and just make those posts on LinkedIn and Facebook. I mean, both of those will allow you to upload a photo. There's not really any need to post on these sites without a photo. It just gets lost in the feed. And then just write your first couple of posts and put them there on Facebook and LinkedIn and let people get an interaction for your writing. I mean, it's really just kind of beta for you, where you're testing things out and seeing what reaction is going to be. Remember, you won't get any eyeballs in Facebook and LinkedIn unless you're putting your eyeballs on other stuff as well. So if you're going to write and put it out there, you've got to, write and interact. I mean, like and interact with other people as well. But, without leaping into creating a website or doing all those other things right now, just make those posts on Facebook or LinkedIn and, look for the interaction there.
Yeah, I started an Instagram account about a month ago, but I haven't used it yet.
Yeah,
and
got to have
Twitter.
really good photos on Instagram. So you got to practice those selfies.
Okay.
Phil, also, we didn't talk about this, the 3 of us, but it's something that I think of a lot, and I'm working on it, because I think it kind of takes a skill to do this too, is coming up with titles that draw people. And I think Gordon has talked about that before. And So if you come up with a title for your blog that's going to grab somebody's attention, the title I came up once with a podcast, which has had the most hits, is "You Want Me to Do What?" Well, then people want to know what did they want her to do,
Mhm.
you know? And so the title thing, Gordon, you have something to add there?
Yeah, I've got a friend whose article just went viral on several platforms, a couple of platforms I'd never heard of. And so I found the title. Her title was how one jaw-dropping moment taught me what radical grace really means. And if she had run that by me, I said, that sounds fantastic. It's a little long, but what do I mean? Apparently, you can't predict virility. And so it's taken off for her. But that's a really great title, apparently. I mean, just one, when you read it, you're like, well, I want to know what that jaw-dropping moment is. And as a Christian, I'm like, do you know what radical grace is? And so it's also got a phenomenal photo to go with it as well. So titles mean a lot. Forgive me, I'm trying to grow TikTok right now, and as I went through my initial appointment for the x-ray and things like that, I did a small video at each stage along the way, my car, the waiting room, x-ray, that kind of thing. And the title, on TikTok, it'll let you put the text over the photo. And I just said, will I ever run a marathon again? ? And it went, it definitely boosted. People know I'm a runner. And so it definitely boosted those numbers. So Nancy's right. And Phil, you're not going to be able to put a title in a title sequence on Facebook. You just make that the first thing. You just make that the first sentence, your title, and then space down and go from there. But Nancy's right. Titles mean a ton.
I think newspaper headlines. What attracts you on a newspaper headline?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of what will stop somebody in their tracks when they're scrolling, And the other thing that we've always been told here is consistency, consistency, consistency. And so if you start, Phil, pick your day that you think is best for you to put it on Facebook or your other social media, and then the next week do the same thing. And do it the same thing, the same time, over and over and over. I just call my blog the Monday blog when I post it. My title's down there. But everybody knows the Monday blog is coming, those who read it, and they know it's out on Monday, and they know it's a blog, and they see it every week the same day.
Yeah.
If for some reason I can't come up with something, here's an idea for you. If you get enough written, or you have little bits from your book or something in the future, or the one you're working on, like I've had weeks where I'm like, okay, I just don't know. I don't have anything right now, and I'll just take an excerpt from something, or if it applies to that time of the year too, and post that as a blog. And I'll just say excerpt from whatever book. So you can reuse things you've done before, and that'll help you out.
So I'm just wondering, Gordon, maybe you can help me or anybody else. Tom was suggesting to me that I could kind of devote my blog to helping others, and I'm basically kind of interested in writers and children and parents and teachers. So I'm just wondering how to go about that.
Eileen, forgive me. I missed the full question. I apologize. What was it?
Tom suggested to me that I tend to try and give advice maybe to parents and guardians and teachers and also other writers, and maybe to use my blog to be a kind of a help and guidance tool. So I'm just wondering how to go about that.
Well, you want to capture them. I think the title definitely starts. And I mean, if you use my friend as an example, the piece of advice would be how I learned ... You could create a series around that, speak to one audience, one topic for a while. On your social media channels, you got to make sure you're connected to that audience. If there are groups on either one of those platforms that allow links, then join groups of that platform. And so there's plenty of parenting Facebook and LinkedIn groups, but primarily Facebook. And so if they allow links, share them there. But here's the other thing: we all got to remember: don't be a slave to the link. You can take that content and share it without the link. And so if there are Facebook groups around that content and they allow it that way, then, pursue that. But just make sure you're putting yourself in front of the eyeballs that you want to talk to you. So that means theology books need to be in front of theologians, and parenting books need to be in front of parents. So, create some series that address a certain topic that's hot button right now. As parenting, that won't be hard. There's plenty of hot button parenting issues right now.
Thank you.
Hey, can I throw something out there for you guys? I've heard a couple of questions about consistency and writing weekly and stuff like that. And I usually tell people, pick a time that you're going to write and be willing to do that consistently for a year. If you're not willing to do that consistently for a year, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of success. Now, I'm not going to tell you that you won't see success, because there's always those one-off articles that catch, virility and stuff like that. But when you're talking about getting found on Google or SEO, getting found in search and indexed, and really Google trying to figure out who you are and what you're writing about, if you're not willing to write at least weekly for a year, that's about the time that it takes for Google to pick you up and figure out what you're writing about, and then start bumping your way up through search traffic. And then cohesively with that, find a social media platform where your audience is, and just work that into your consistency. So Nancy mentioned, don't wait to the last minute to write. Get 3 or 4 blogs or 3 or 4 weeks ahead. And, with Facebook or some other tools, it's pretty easy to schedule things out. And so get your articles scheduled 3 or 4 weeks out so that you can take a vacation without worrying about, missing a week. Get your social media posts scheduled 3 or 4 weeks out, and then just be consistent. And I'm not going to promise you that you're going to see stellar results, but in my experience, I've been doing this for like 7 years now through Devotable. If you're consistent at it, you will start to see results within 6 months to 8 months. And then at the year's mark, you will start to see really positive results in the form of hundreds, if not, thousands of page views. It took me about 2 years to get to 10,000+ page views, and 5 years to just hit the 40,000 page view mark. So it's just about consistency. I mean, just pick a schedule and stick to it, and you'll start seeing results.
I think one thing that maybe could be mentioned too, and I think it's kind of a theme that's run through this morning, but I didn't learn it until I had published in 2 different genres, really. And that is that you're branding, yourself, and that can't be said enough. So yes, you're working on this book or that book or whatever. And that's how I started when I started doing podcasts and interviews and everything. I'm talking about that book. Well, really, you're talking about yourself, and you're trying to make a connection with yourself. So as you think about what you're writing and what you're putting out there, it very quickly, for all of us who are kind of private people, it can be a little bit scary in that sense. But that, think of an overall picture, because you can fit a lot of different genres and a lot of different work into the, into what you're doing. Pushing your work is almost secondary in a sense like that, but you're really branding yourself. And I know that that's probably a given in everybody's mind in some ways, but that took me a little bit of time to figure out. I'm not pushing a book, I'm pushing Kim, so.
Yeah. And I don't know how many of you do this, but I know some authors do, and I'm trying to start this. My blog is one thing, and it's once a week, but that's everywhere, everywhere I can put it, and on my website for whoever to see. But I'm trying to do a newsletter now, probably once a quarter to begin, that's strictly for my subscribers. That's going to be a different writing than the blog. That's just going to be a letter to them with updates and when's the book coming out and that type of thing. And that's a way you know, it's kind of nice then to connect with the readers you do have and kind of build a little bit of relationship with them, and occasionally offer something that they might enjoy, you know.
I would just offer everyone that blogging is just got to be a tool for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's very utilitarian, unless you're just writing for your own benefit and edification, which is fine. I encourage you to do that. Otherwise, it's a tool in your toolbox. And writing a blog and posting it on your website is going to Lowe's and buying a hammer. That's all you've done so far. And what are you going to do with it? And so it's a wonderful tool. And Landon and Nancy are right. But it's a commitment to doing it regularly and learning what to do with it. And so that's just the part. I mean, you know, 20 years ago, none of us would have our platform. You know, it would be Scribner who would publish everything. So right now we all, you know, 8,000 new books come out. What is it, a day right now? And so we've got this wonderful tool. We can publish our books ourselves or pay someone to publish them for us. But no one's just going to find it unless, you know, we learn the other tools of putting it out there.
That's a good analogy.
Good. I got bad ones, so I'm thankful that one's good. So.
Do any of you out there already have a blog going that you're doing? Feels about ready to launch? Marie?
I have a blog. I only write it about maybe a couple of times a month. You know, I'll do something, and it's mostly either about my process or about things that I've discovered as a writer. Like I've got one blog about, you know, how characters sometimes can take on a life of their own and then do things you don't expect while you're in the writing process. I don't know if any of you have ever had a character kind of run away with you, but, you know, that sort of thing that people wouldn't, you know, normally maybe think of, but people might find interesting. So, yeah, but it's like I said, I haven't really pushed it a lot. I'm focused a lot more. I have a not a huge amount of subscribers, but a decent amount, enough that I actually have more work that I'm doing with them. I have a newsletter I put out, and then I try and put something up on social media at least once a week. I try and make Monday my online day, and by the end of the day, I'm going cross-eyed and I have a headache, you know. Yeah, that's all I'm really doing right now, and I'm not really pushing the blog. I see that where I could probably do more. So this has been good. I can, you know, put links to the blog up on, you know, each time I come out with something new on my other sites, because I don't even think of it. I'm just such a space brain. I just write it because I get a wild hair, something comes into my head and I'm like, oh wow, you know, and I'll write it and I'll put it up for my subscribers, and then I don't think about the fact that I could take that maybe later and put it up on my social media. So,
you know, you made me think of something, and it's something we all know Gordon is very, very good at. And we're not so good at it. But Gordon is everywhere all day long. I mean, you can't go anywhere and not see Gordon, you know, doing something. And I'll give this example. It's a different area, but my husband is like super active on LinkedIn, but his group is like 99.99% musicians, and almost all of them guitar players.
wow.
Well, you know, guitar, if you live with a guitar player, and I know some of you play guitar, but you know they are a breed of their own. And I know as a musician and writer that if we put up something musically, it'll get way more hits than if I put up something about a book or something about books. Okay, so I can tell you he's on there every single day. He's either doing a small 3 to 5 minute lesson that he does on some technique or something, and they just eat it up. Or like the other day, we posted a shirt of his, it's got a grammar editorial mistake in there. Oh, he's got like close to 5,000 views of that now, and all these comments on his shirt. I'm like, something wrong with you people, because that's a silly guitar shirt. But he is there every single day, and those guys are interacting constantly. But part of it is that they are there all the time, seeing each other all the time, and they are in their little niche. And so I watch him and think, okay, they got it going there. It's harder for me to find that niche maybe, and to feel comfortable every single day. Some days I'm like, well, I don't know what I would say today, or do. But Gordon, he gives good examples, because if you watch him, he puts up all kinds of things that don't really take time and aren't really gigantic words or something. He's just being present.
Nancy, Nancy, I'm just glad he clearly, obviously, did get his cup of coffee this morning, because if he was still doing what I saw him doing earlier today, we'd all have gotten pretty nauseous by now, because he was bobbing and weaving and shaking and everything. But that coffee obviously has calmed him down. So thank you, Gordon.
I was also very glad to see you guys. I've missed the last couple of weeks, but thank you. I'm trying to be a bit more still, and I haven't touched this since we got on the call, so that might have been helpful. Again, my wife, when I was preaching this was her motion, and that just meant you've got to calm down. And most days, at some point in time, she'll just go, "You make me so tired." And so I have to be careful. Thank you, Mark.
We can still learn from you, even if you're on the excessive side, but we can still learn from you.
Here's
amen,
the thing, guys.
Nancy, I say amen to everything you said. And if for anybody who's not, I mean, you can turn them off whenever you want. And once in a while, I'm saying, oh my gosh, Gordon, what are you doing? But he's an unbelievably clever. And if you just if you're not following him, follow him, LinkedIn or Facebook. And if you're lacking creative ideas, if you're unconcerned about making people laugh, because I probably think more times than not, when I watch him and whatever it is he's doing, he's always sometimes very directly or sometimes very subtly sending some kind of a communication. And every now and then I have to stop laughing to really figure out what it is. But it really, you could just follow him for a week or 2 or 3 and make notes, because every which way from Sunday, you'll see how you can present yourself to an audience that makes you desirable. And that's really clearly what he's trying to do. So Nancy, I totally agree with you.
Thank you guys.
Finding that audience, because these guitar player guys, they're all about each other all day long, They're like very uplifting towards each other, and they just got this thing going. And so I just sit there and observe, and I'm like, how can I apply this to me? And and then Gordon's doing it, and how can I apply that to me?
Well, you guys are very kind. I will tell you this: on the internet, nothing is too mundane. You might go, "This is stupid. Why would I do it?" I mean, but there's a lot of mundaneness, mundanity on the internet, and you will find someone else who enjoys it. It's also helpful that I have a lot of B music interests. You'll get anything from Kiss to giant shark movies attached with a book about Bible. So you'll get, it's all in there. But the thing is, for you, Phil, just go for it, man. I've enjoyed watching your journey and just knowing you here in these few months. You could just share the nervousness about the journey, and people are interested in that, because there's someone else going like, I'm scared to do this too. Phil's doing it. Or
that's what my blog is all. That's the theme of my blog. I've titled it "On Becoming a Christian Writer."
Yeah, goodness.
And I'm taking people through this whole journey with me. I'm starting out from scratch, and I've written about 40 different encouragements that I'll release in small pieces, 250 words or somewhere around there. And I'll expose my mistakes and things that I've learned that work. And that's what the blog is going to be about, for other people, to encourage other people who think that they have a calling on their lives but don't know how to do it, or if they're good enough to do it. And I'll just take them through my journey, and they can follow along, and I'll just blog about it.
Right.
Very short blurbs, respecting the time that it takes to read my blog and anything else that you're doing, and they still have to have time to write.
Well, that's good. It is good content, Phil. There's a lot of people who will, one, share with you because they're right in the midst of that journey, and then there's folks who, you never know, we're going to search how do you become a Christian author, and then your title or something could very well, Landon can help you get into the SEO and the search. But it is worthwhile, and we got to remember, guys, all your journeys. We believe God's walking us down these paths, and so you don't have to live your life online like I do, but what you're going through is worthy, and it's honoring to God, and people want to see and walk it with you. And if it's full of grace, even better, because we've got enough vitriol right now.
It's all very daunting.
It is, but can we interject here fun? Because, my neighbor girl, friend, Elena, said to me years ago, she's now 14, so, she's into all this stuff really, well, you tell such fun stories. So can you tell, why can't you tell this story of, I was saying to my brother, I don't care if you don't think I'm right, because eventually by the time you die, you'll figure out that I am. And he said, do you think you have some kind of problem there that, you need some mental help? I always thinking you're right. She said, that's the kind of thing people want to know. And, I use that in a newsletter, and I got a lot of response from that, because it's kind of poking fun at yourself, but I mean, everybody feels it too. So, that's how I get motivated, is I would have to find a fun thing. I mean, it's got to be some fun, like Gordon, you're having fun, Nance, you're having fun, and so Phil, when you think about it, there's a reason you got into it. You want to have fun. I mean, it's not all work. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It will make you blogging. I mean, it will make you a better writer. Like when you, if you're writing books, blogging will make you better at doing that, because it does help you with being concise and being succinct, and readability is important, and so it really will. It'll add to it, and so yeah, I mean, it's worthwhile to give it a shot if, like Nancy said, you're committed to it. If
in school, one of my classes at school, they call it the economy of words.
Mhm.
And that's what being concise is all about to me.
Thank you all so much. Thank you all.
Welcome. It's after 11, so any more questions, or I will dismiss us. Oh, Tom's there. Tom, do you want to say something before we dismiss?
I just want to, excuse me, I just want to say that I'm in awe of this community and these discussions that we're having. If I had those back in 1895, then I would be a different person today as far as a writer. So I really appreciate it very much. And thank you all. Hope you have a wonderful week. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Nancy, I still don't have internet, so I'm going to have to get in touch with you later.
Okay.
Today.
Okay, that's fine.
Right.
Thanks everybody for
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
so much.
Bye. Have a good week.
Okay. So long.
Bye-bye. See ya. Next week, I hope I'll be in Atlanta. So I'll see if I'm able to get on.